You know, it shapes our lives from the second we're born to the day we die. It educates us, it taxes us, it protects us, and sometimes, yeah, it oppresses us. I'm talking about the state. But what even is this thing that has so much power over all of us? I mean, where did it come from? And in our world of giant global corporations and the internet, where is it headed? Okay, let's get right into it and try to figure this out.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll tackle the big one. What exactly is the state? Then, we're going to dive into the huge debate over who it really serves. After that, we'll look at what people think it should do. And finally, we'll ask the really tough question. Does the state even have a future in our modern world? All right, to get us started, let's do a little thought experiment. Just for a second, I want you to imagine a world with no state. I mean nothing. No laws, no police, no courts. What do you think that would actually look like?
Well, way back in the 17th century, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes had a pretty grim answer. He called this stateless chaos a state of nature, and he was convinced that life in it would be, well, just a constant war of everyone against everyone else. His terrifying vision really gets to the very heart of why the state was created in the first place, to save us all from that chaos.
So, what is this thing that's supposed to stand between us and total anarchy? Here's the official kind of textbook definition. But basically, it's a group that has supreme, ultimate authority, that's called sovereignty, over a specific piece of land. And it uses that power through a whole set of permanent public institutions. Think government, courts, the military, and so on. And you can really boil it down to these 5 key ingredients that make a state, well, a state. First up, sovereignty. That means its power is absolute within its borders. It gets the final say. Second, its institutions are public, not private. They're there to make decisions for everybody. Third is legitimation. That's the idea that we the people accept its right to rule. Fourth, and this one's a biggie, is domination. As the sociologist Max Weber famously put it, the state has a monopoly on the legitimate use of violence. And last but not least, it's territorial. Its power has a clear geographic boundary.
Okay, but here's where things get really complicated. That nice, neat definition kind of assumes the state is just a neutral referee, acting for the common good. But is it really? For centuries, this one question, who does the state truly serve, has been at the center of one of the biggest debates in all of politics.
And that puts the key question right in front of us. When the state passes a law, or decides to raise taxes, or goes to war, whose interest is it actually representing?
Well, there are 4 major theories that try to answer that. First, there's the pluralist view, which is pretty common in democracies. It sees the state as a neutral umpire just balancing the interests of all these competing groups. Then you've got the capitalist theory, which comes out of Marxism. It argues the state is really just a tool for the rich and powerful. The Leviathan theory suggests the state is a kind of self-serving monster with its own goals, mostly just to get bigger and more powerful. And finally, the patriarchal theory. A core idea in feminist thought sees the state as an institution that holds up the power of men.
And that Leviathan theory isn't just some abstract idea. I mean, think about it. From this point of view, the state isn't just a neutral servant. It has its own agenda. And people often point to institutions like the National Security Agency, with its huge budget and massive surveillance programs, as proof that the state is a creature with a life of its own, always trying to grow its power.
Okay, so we've looked at what the state is and who it might actually be serving. But that leads us to maybe the most practical political question there is. What should the state actually be doing?
You can kind of think about the answers on a spectrum. On one end, you've got the minimal state. People call it a night watchman state. Its only job is to protect people from each other and from outside threats. So it keeps order, makes sure people honor their contracts, and defends the country. And that's it. But on the other end of the spectrum is the social democratic state. This is more of a welfare state that gets actively involved to fix the injustices of the market, try to reduce inequality, and generally look out for people's well-being.
But of course, it's not just a simple spectrum. History has given us a bunch of other models. You've got the developmental state, which works hand in hand with private industry to fuel economic growth. There's the collectivized state, which takes control of the entire economy. You have the frankly terrifying totalitarian state, which tries to control every single aspect of your life. And then there's the religious state, which uses its power to enforce specific moral and spiritual laws.
So, that brings us to our final and maybe most urgent question. In our world of globalization, mega corporations, and the internet, is the state fading away? Is it, becoming obsolete?
I mean, get this. It's a mind-blowing statistic. If you list the world's 100 biggest economies, more than half of them are corporations, not countries. A company like Amazon brings in more revenue than the entire GDP of a country like Nigeria. This huge economic power is a direct challenge to the authority of states because money and jobs can just flow across borders, almost like no single government can control them anymore.
And you can see the backlash to this shift in power everywhere. Protests like these, against international groups like the World Trade Organization, are often all about the feeling that these powerful bodies are overriding the ability of individual countries to protect their own people and their own economies. It's really a fight over who gets to make the rules in the 21st century.
But then, just when it looks like the state is on its way out, a crisis hits. The COVID-19 pandemic led to what a lot of people are calling a return of the state. Because when we were faced with that massive global threat, who stepped up? It was states, not companies, not nonprofits, that closed borders, enforced lockdowns, and rolled out huge vaccination campaigns. This image here captures that perfectly. It shows both the incredible reach of the modern state, but also its very real limits.
So, yeah, while globalization has definitely changed the game, the state is far from dead. In fact, you could argue that all these new global threats, from terrorism and pandemics to financial crises and cyber attacks, have powerfully reminded us of the state's unique and vital role in providing security and stability when nobody else can.
And so that brings us right back here, to the central paradox that has defined the state since the very beginning. What is it really? Is it our ultimate protector, the only thing that saves us from chaos and gives us civilization? Or is it a monster we built ourselves, a leviathan that always threatens to swallow the very freedoms it was supposed to protect? The answer, it seems, is still being written.